Hi, April. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Kate. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad that we could do this.
Me too.
Please tell us about the story seed for Snowy Race.
So, Snowy Race came from many different places, but I think it especially came from growing up in Minnesota, where it's even colder and snowier than it is here in Massachusetts. So, I have a lot of childhood memories of growing up in the snow and lots of memories with my own kids these more recent years. So it came from wanting to write about snow and something that I had so much experience with. But it also came from a piece of art that I saw from a friend in Maine who draws really stylized pastels, and it was a big plow with ribbons of snow. So I think that's part of where the plow aspect came from. So I wanted to write about that, but then I also, when I had this feeling of the plow, I had plow versus snow. So I thought of books like Jerry Pilatus' Who Would Win books and Shark versus Train, and I think I got inspired by these sort of two voices. And then really digging deep, I realized that I was influenced by having visited my dad at his office for many, many years as a child. I started visiting when I was about 2 months old. I often show kids a picture of me sleeping at his office. So he made books for a living. He was creative director for a publishing company. So that clearly affected a lot of what I do. But I think being able to help him and feeling that joy and feeling important was something that filtered into the story as well. So it really came from a lot of different places, and I love to tell kids that you really are your own story stew, right? You have all these pieces of experiences that you put together that help you create something that nobody else would create. So when they say, I say, where do you get ideas? And they say, from our brains. And I say, but you have to feed that brain, right? Just the way you feed a car with gas or you feed your body with food. You have to feed your brain with experiences and new foods and going places and talking to people and reading books and just generating that stew for yourself.
Definitely. Your dad must love this book.
He does. It's dedicated to him. So that was a joy.
That's so nice. You told this story in 114 words, and you've written other books such as What Do Wheels Do All Day that are even fewer words. Could you please talk about the process of crafting a story with so few words?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that each story is its own thing, right? Like it has a way that it sort of wants to be told or can be told. So I had many different snow stories going on. When I decided I wanted to write about snow, I had, what about the first time, experiencing snow? What about waiting for it to snow? There were so many different approaches that I took, and they were all much longer and prose based. So I think when I hit upon this refrain of the flurry, flurry, hurry, hurry, and the two voices, it stayed with me, and it was something that I wanted to explore and see where it went. So it just came out very spare, very different from the others that I had tried to write. And I think that I was also always keeping in mind, there was an article that editor Ann Hoppy wrote for the Horn Book many years ago, and it's something that I photocopied and saved. I think it was even before they were online. But it talked about how picture book writers really want to write with restraint so that you're leaving space for the illustrator to tell their part of the story. So I think that's something that is always a challenge to me.
Yeah, definitely. I've actually challenged the readers of this blog to try and write a story in less than 100 words for the 100th day of school.
That's a fabulous idea.
Yeah, it should be fun. I can't wait to see what they come up with.
I think they will eat it up.
I think so too. So you mentioned that you dedicated the book to your dad.
Yes.
But you also thanked the Shrewsbury Highway Department, and I was hoping you could share with readers how they helped you with the research for this book.
Absolutely. It's so nice to have resources to be able to reach out to when you have questions, right? Because some things we can't learn from books or blogs or, other sources. So the Shrewsbury Highway Department was really helpful, not so much in the text because I think it was so spare, but when we got to the illustration component, we realized we had a lot of questions, partly stemming from the fact that Christine Davenier, the illustrator, lives in Paris, and we realized it really doesn't snow.
Oh, no.
In Paris. She got about 6 inches at a time when she was painting the book, which felt like, you're welcome, we sent it over there. But we had a lot of questions about what size the plow should be, where the little girl should sit, because plows aren't really geared toward having passengers. So they're, 2 separate seats in the front. So I talked to the highway department. I also talked to Ford Motor Company, both dealerships and corporate, and asking them about different ways you can configure your cab and can you turn off the airbag. And we just wanted to make sure that she was safe and that we were setting a good example. But we also wanted the little girl to be central to the action. We didn't want her to not be able to see from the back seat. So lots of questions about that, questions about how the sanders worked and what went in them, and whether the highway department uses contractors or whether he would be an employee, or like where is he living in proximity to the plow itself. And so these little details that when someone goes to depict them visually, you want to make sure that you understand what kind of thing you're after. And so we sent her lots of photos, and I was able to go down to the highway department and take pictures of different equipment, and I was just really grateful for their help.
That's wonderful. They were so helpful.
Yes.
So most people who read this blog are classroom teachers. In addition to writing, you also teach a college course at Rhode Island School of Design. You help authors develop their careers, artists develop their careers, and you have a family. Can you please tell teachers how you manage to write when you're doing all of those other jobs at the same time?
Absolutely. I wish that I wrote more, and I feel like that, that's a good New Year's resolution. I think we're all always learning how to balance and juggle as you have different demands on your time. But I think the best advice is to do what I know you're so good at doing, which is getting up early and really trying to put in your own creative time before you check your email and you get into the frenzy of the day, because it's really hard at the end of the day when you're sort of frazzled with all these different ideas and needs and exciting things that are coming at you. It's hard to have the brain space to do your own creative work. So I think that's usually the best strategy, just carving out that time and protecting it.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks again for having me. I appreciate it. Happy reading.
Happy reading. Take care.